I know in mathematics, 4 always follows 3. But I have to tell you that there's one place in the Bible that 4 should not follow 3. And it's only because it doesn't make sense. Or let me say it another way. My 4 and Jesus's 4 are totally different. Thanks for joining the 260 journey. In our journey through the 260 chapters of the New Testament, we come upon 2 verses that seem so disconnected to the human mind, but not in Jesus's mind. Listen to John 13:3 and how powerful it is. Jesus knew that the Father had put him in complete charge of everything, that he came from God and was on his way back to God. Listen to the sure facts again in verse 3. Jesus knew the Father had put him in complete charge of everything. He came from God and he was on his way back to God. Those are 3 big statements. So what should follow these incredible words? You're in complete charge of everything. My next verse, verse 4, would look something like this. Lightning bolts came out of him. Jesus levitating off the ground saying, I told you I was God. I'm in charge now. That's what 4 should look like. That's what I would have done, but not Jesus. Here's what happens next. And here is Jesus's verse 4. Verse 4 says this. So he got up from the supper table, set aside his robe, put on an apron, poured water into a basin, and began to wash the feet of his disciples, drying them with that apron. The transition doesn't even seem to make sense. I don't understand in my selfish, prideful heart how that 4 follows that 3. How this kind of 4 follows 3 is incredible. When you know what Jesus knows, you do something spectacular, blow people's minds. But guess what? That's exactly what he did. Jesus washes the disciples' feet. The verse 4 I'm thinking about is everyone washing his feet. Not even close. His knowledge, his position, and his relationship with the Father in heaven only made him the ultimate servant and the greatest example of humility. This has to be the greatest example for us. Learning that the more we know, the more secure we become. The more secure we become, the more we want to serve people. The insecure won't serve. Let me say that again. Those that are insecure won't serve other people. They are busy proving to others what they should know about them. They're in charge. They are the boss. They are the parent. They are the supervisor. I am the pastor. Those who keep telling you what you should know about them don't really even know themselves. I probably would have taken those 3 knowing statements of verse 3 and not served, but got servants after that. But Jesus serves. That's how messed up sometimes my mind is even thinking here and how far off it is. Let me throw one more crazy transition in this whole mix. He takes this whole teaching moment and says to them in verse 14, if I then, the Lord and the teacher, washed your feet, you also ought to wash. Now think about this, fill in the blank. Think of what is normal. If we are dealing with Jesus, it's going to end up being abnormal. Here's what makes sense to me. If I, the Lord, the teacher, washed your feet, what I would have said is, then you ought to wash my feet. That's not what even Jesus says. If I, the Lord, the teacher, washed your feet, then he says this, you also ought to wash one another's feet. If I wash your feet, then wash other people's feet. This to me is another crazy 4 after 3 conundrum. He wasn't washing feet to get his feet washed. I know there are times that I've done stuff hoping others would do the same back to me, but not Jesus. I invited you over for dinner, therefore you should invite me. You borrowed my car, therefore you should let me borrow your car. I complimented your hair, so you compliment mine. I invited you to speak at my church, you should invite me to speak at your church. Do you see how unlike Jesus this is? He washed feet to get them to wash other people's feet, not his own. Jesus is amazing. I have such a long way to go. My 4 after 3 and Jesus's 4 after 3 are so far apart. I need to learn more about Jesus's 4. Thanks for joining the 260 journey.